As I started saying, many of you guys know that I used to be the youth pastor here, and I also used to be the kids pastor up until a couple months ago. And I tried to look at the rosters and everything, and doing the math over the span of the last 5 years, Caleb and I have come into contact with about 50 plus youth. And when it comes to kids, about 100 plus kids. Our kids are, bursting at the seams. But when I was looking at the numbers, we've come in contact with, probably 100 plus kids as well. So my plan today is literally just to share some experiences that I've had, some things that I've learned, because we all know that, when we volunteer in kids ministry or youth ministry, you're coming there and like, okay, I'm gonna teach them all this stuff. I'm gonna show them the ropes. But in reality, they start to teach you, and I guess any parent probably knows that too, or somebody who's watching a kid, you always think that you gotta teach them, but in reality, the kids teach you. They help you grow, they change you. And I was a little bit nervous about giving this sermon. I was planning it back when I was on staff, back when I was pregnant. And I was trying to word it right because I didn't want anyone to feel like this was some weird pressure to volunteer in kids and youth. But now that I'm not on staff, I can just pressure you guys as much as I want. I'm kidding. Really, what this is for is to just look into your own life and see those kids or youth that you're already connected with, or even just young people, whoever you're connected with, just taking a moment to think about your own circle. So don't worry, there's no pressure, but if you so felt the need to, you could always talk to somebody on staff about that. We're going to be starting today in Matthew 5:14. So if you have a Bible, feel free to turn there. As believers, we're called to be the light. We're called to influence. And this light transcends generational boundaries. No matter what stage of life that you're in, you can bring change. You can make a difference. You can be the light. And we see Jesus emphasize this. So let's look at Matthew 5:14. You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden. Nor do people light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on a stand, and it gives light to all in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father who is in heaven. This passage reminds us that our faith isn't supposed to just be hidden or for ourselves. It's supposed to be out. It's supposed to be shining so that people can see it. And this is proof that I probably need to stay in youth ministry, kids ministry, because the first thing I thought of, when I was reading this verse, was trick-or-treating. I know, I'm sorry, maybe that's a bad word to say in here. I know a lot of you went to Hallelujah Harvest. It's not the same, Caleb. I'm sorry. Trick-or-treating is very different than Hallelujah Harvest. But we all know the unspoken rule about trick-or-treating. If you don't want kids coming to your house, what do? Turn off all the lights. You say no. Even the common courtesy lights. If you usually have your front porch lights on October 31st, you don't even put those ones on. You just make it really abundantly clear, nope, nobody's coming to my house. And I grew up in an older neighborhood. We had packs of kids roaming around, but it wasn't like a whole neighborhood that was completely filled with kids. So on Halloween night, you'd walk around, and you'd be looking for those homes that were lit up, that were bright, that were welcoming. So you kind of look around on the street, and then you'd be on a dark street for a while, and then boom, there would be that house, and then all the kids would kind of flock to it. In the same way, we just have to be there, ready, available, shining, and the people will come. The youth will come, the kids will come, the teens will come. And our lives are just meant to be that beacon of light. I'm not saying, this is not like you have to put candy out on Halloween. It was just an analogy. It was just a youth analogy that came to my mind. Like I said, I'm more wired for teen sermons, but I'm trying my best. So in the same way, when we look back at this verse, it's not necessarily, be the light when you turn this age or in this season or this time. It's just pretty clear. It's be the light. It doesn't have to be at any specific age or date or place in your life or specific time. And something that's so cool, it doesn't have to be something huge like a big hoopla. You've all been in a dark room, and like if you just turn on one little, or like light one little candle, it lights up the whole room. And then imagine us all working together. If we all just have a little light, kind of like the Christmas service where everyone has this little light, and it just lights up the entire room. All of the generations working together light up the entire room. And it's not easy. Like, I know it's not easy. Like, I don't know. Being in youth ministry, there's a lot of times where you're kind of uncomfortable. You kind of have to go out of your comfort zone sometimes to be the light, but it is so worth it. I'm not there in my story yet, or my sermon yet, but I have some awkward stories I cannot wait to share with you guys. My whole 5 years, if I can, describe it, it's been life-changing and awkward. Just what you get with teens sometimes. I understand that with different generations, there can be some, tension. I don't know how to describe it. Maybe with, I don't know what it was when I turned 16. The second I got keys, I'm like, well, I know everything. The second you get keys to your car, you're like, wow, I really know everything. If I know how to drive and I could drive anywhere, I have infinite knowledge now. I don't know how that works, but I felt that instantly. I don't know what that was. I clearly had a lot more to learn. So sometimes, as young people, we feel like we know everything, but I don't feel like it's just on us. Of course, I think sometimes older generations get a little apathetic and think gosh, what's the point? They're not going to listen to me. Why would I even try? Why should I care? So it's not one side is to blame or not, but it's just something to think about, and we can try to open our hearts as we think about the people in our lives around us who might want to help us, or people that we might want to help ourselves. And something that kind of helped put my walls down a little bit, where I noticed with kids and youth immediately, is that we all have the same struggles, but they're just kind of in different packages, as I just started pretty much my first year in youth ministry, it didn't take long to be oh, I'm struggling with that, I'm struggling with that. When you hear what the kids are talking about. So at the core, it's the same. And of course, another youth analogy, because I'm, youth ministry in my heart, but it's kind of like when you buy the generic brand of something, it's the package is different. When a kid has a problem, sometimes, when with certain loss or things like that, sometimes it can be a little bit different, but in reality, at the core, it's the same thing. When you buy the Oreos at the Walmart, so they're called Twist and Shouts. I don't know why. That sounds like the, not a yummy cookie, but it's when you get to the core of it and you open up the package, it's the same root issue. I notice that a lot. I notice that countless times over my years in youth ministry, where we would do this thing called highs and lows. And sometimes I would try to not do highs and lows. I'd be like, should we really do highs and lows? Do people even like it? But I don't know. You always prove me wrong, Caleb. They always wanted to do highs and lows. They always liked it. And when we would go around the room, what we'd pretty much do is we'd say something great from our week, and then the worst part of our week. So we'd also kind of do this in kids ministry, where whenever I would lead, I wouldn't necessarily say what was the best or worst part of your week, but we just have kids share. And if you ask kids to share, instantly everybody's hand is up. They're ready to share. They're ready to tell about their week. They're ready to just take up the whole class sharing about their weekend. So, obviously during that time, I heard a lot of, we went to Subway. That was awesome. That was my favorite part. I'm like, awesome. That's great. A lot of, my pet turtle died. And, it's oh man, that's tough. And, there's some things that were kind of silly, and things that were, maybe tough, but not too deep. And sometimes, though, it would get really uncomfortable. You'd hear some stuff that was, whoa, did they just say that? Did they just share that? And, we always tried to make it a really open space so people could share really anything. But, we heard a lot of things of family instability, insecurity, rejection. We've heard a lot of loss of a loved one, anxiety, physical illness. My mom is sick. When will she get better? And it's just these things that, we struggle with as adults, and sometimes we forget that kids are struggling with it too, because we just see them jazzed out, running around, Sometimes we forget that they are going through really, really tough situations. And I think the most heartbreaking ones that I heard were in kids ministry, because they don't have those courtesy walls built up yet. As adults, we have courtesy walls where we don't want to overshare because we don't want to disturb anyone, or overshare or talk too much. But I think I can't, kind of like that 3 through K up until like 3rd grade, they don't really have those courtesy walls yet. And they would just say stuff where it's like, oh my goodness, what did you just say? What is going on? And sometimes that was some of the hardest things to hear, because these kids are really struggling with big issues, big problems, and you just would never know. So that's kind of what helped me, bring my walls down a little bit, instead of being like, oh, they don't know, or they're too young, or they're too old. Understanding that we have all navigated the same struggles. It's like this thread, that connects us all. And, an even more important thread that connects us all is Christ. Christ is the one who unifies us. And it's easy to feel very separated, because I know that the world I grew up in is completely different than the world that you guys grew up in. And then even Caleb and I now talk, and we're like, what? How do these kids have phones already? I still remember when we had the home phone, or like my dad learned to use a typewriter, and I'm like, I've never even been able to have access to a working typewriter. So it's just like things are, changing so much. So I know it's easy to feel completely disconnected, but we must remember that Christ is the one who unifies us. Despite all these differences, despite all the changes, he's the only one who can really bring us together. And so if you have your Bible today, we're going to turn to Ephesians 4, 3 through 6. And I'm reading in the Amplified Classic Edition. Be eager and strive earnestly to guard and keep the harmony and oneness of and produced by the Spirit in the binding power of peace. There is one body and one Spirit, just as there is also one hope that belongs to the calling you received. There is one God, one faith, one baptism, one God and Father of us all, who is above all, sovereign over all, pervading all, and living in us all. That's the goal. That's the goal. We don't always have to be relatable or seem relatable. That was always my insecurity in youth ministry, is I didn't feel very relatable. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I think I felt the least relatable when I was in my 3rd trimester, super pregnant, because obviously, we don't necessarily have any teens pregnant in our youth ministry. So I just felt really, really pregnant, and I would just wear muumuus. You guys know what a muumuu is? Maybe not. It's I don't know, maybe it's like what your grandma wears. But I'd just wear muumuus all the time, and the youth would come over to my home, and I'd just be with this giant belly and a muumuu. And instead of just being yeah, guys, stay over, hang out as late as you want. At 8:30, I'm like, please go home. I'm pregnant. I don't want you here anymore. You know what I mean? I just wasn't the cool, young, relatable, fun, hip youth pastor that maybe I felt like I used to be. But hey, we read the word. We prayed with them. We did what we need to do in that hour. And God can work through that. If you don't feel like you're relatable, you don't feel like you're connecting with anybody, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. It's Christ that unifies us, and we should seek to have that peace over the different generations. If you're here right now, if you're alive and in this room breathing, or maybe you're on the live stream and you're tuning in, or this camera, hi. If you're on the live stream tuning in or here in this room, you have a tremendous opportunity to make a difference, to minister, to show love to the generations around you and your family. And I just want to keep emphasizing it's not about an age or a time, or I'm in youth ministry, or I'm doing this, or it doesn't have to be like that. It doesn't have to be, perfectly set up for you to have an opportunity to make a difference. I don't think the Groves are here. I know they had a trip or something, but when I was in 2nd grade, their daughter, Kara, was a 6th grader. And I remember thinking, this is the coolest 6th grader in the world, Kara Groves. I'm just this is my, this is who I want to be. This is it. A sixth grader. Okay, how old are sixth graders? Like 11, 12? You can be 11 and 12 and make a difference and mentor. We all loved, I don't know if you guys did book buddies at the school you're growing up at, but your book buddy was like only like 2 years older than you, but for some reason you felt like they were just like, they were just like amazing. They were just the coolest person in the world. All that to say, it could be a 12-year-old, to a second grader. It doesn't have to be, I don't know what we think of when we think of mentor and mentee and all these different rules about that. But we need you. Your children need you. Teens need you. Young adults need you. Parents need you. Your love, influence, and your wisdom, life experience can make a huge difference. Caleb and I, like I said, we would do the youth group at our home for a season, and what we pretty much would do is we would choose a chunk of the Bible. We'd just read through it as it is, no matter how stale it may have seemed. We would just read the Bible. But what we would do is we would break it down and we would add some questions in so that we could discuss it. Because sometimes you read something that was really like what is going on? So then we would try to add in these questions to not make it so foreign to us or confusing, especially the Old Testament. When you read some of that, you're like, what is going on? So we would just add these questions to try to bring some clarity, make it a little bit easier for them. And we had this one question. We were reading through Romans 5, and I don't want to butcher the question, but the question we asked after reading a chunk was, can you share a personal experience where someone showing you love made a difference in your life? So we went around the circle, and I don't know, maybe this was just me, maybe your teen is an outlier, but when I think of, that certain age, there comes a time where the coolest people in the world are their friends, and then their significant other, like boyfriend, girlfriend. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, goodbye, parents. Right when you get the keys to your car, it's like, all right, bye, parents. I'm going to go hang out with my friends and my boyfriend or whatever. And so, we put emphasis on that. And sometimes as parents, we take a step back because we're like, well, this is who's important. This is who they care about right now. But what's really interesting is when you went around the circle, well, that's like a tongue twister. When we went around the circle, they didn't share, oh, my best friend with his PlayStation 5, or, oh, my girlfriend I met on Snapchat. It wasn't that. The top answer was their parents or their guardians, their legal guardians, whoever was taking care of them. The second, answer that we got when we went around the circle was grandparents. A lot of people sharing, their grandparents were the ones who showed them love and made a difference. Third, teachers, camp counselors, and sports coaches, team coaches, things like that. And I was just blown away, that, gosh, these people, they are making a difference. They're continuing to make a difference at this age where, everyone feels like, a little maybe removed from their parents. They're finding new independence. Everyone goes through that, but you matter. You matter. You came to their mind. You came to your kids' minds. We did this with junior high and senior high. It's you matter. And they do need us. We've all heard, I don't need you, right? I feel like everyone's heard, oh, I don't need you anymore. Maybe we felt that, or maybe, your child or a child in your life says something that kind of infers that, or alludes to that. But they do need you. Whether or not they say it, they do need you. And I even had my phase where, you think you don't need your parents anymore. And then when I found out my roommate was awful, who did I come running back to? Mom and Dad, help me, 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 I need you. And, that's the amazing opportunity to keep your heart open. If your kids, are separated from you right now, if you don't feel like a closeness and a oneness with your children, just keep trying to take that high road. I know it's hard, I know it's tough, but if you keep your heart open, they come back around. I'm just being honest. For the most part, they do come back around. And yeah, when I remember just having this big plan to move out, and I was so excited. And yeah, just 1 month later, I'm like, please save me from this situation and help me. I need you. And, my dad stood up for me, and I was like, God, protect me. You just kind of run back to the people who kept their heart open to you, even when it was difficult. So I just have a question for you guys. Sorry, it's a rhetorical question. I don't know if you like those or not. I know that's kind of like a public speaking, what's that called? Yeah, faux pas. So if you could have dinner with somebody living or dead, who would you choose? Feel free to think about it in your head. If you could have dinner with someone living or dead, who would you choose? Maybe an author, maybe you're a famous author because you have a bunch of questions for them. If they wrote like a mystery novel, it's like, oh, I want to figure out all the details of this. Maybe a celebrity or somebody who inspires you. I would like to have dinner with Elvis. I heard he ate a lot. I didn't watch the new Elvis movie. I don't know if they depicted that. I don't know if that's appropriate. I haven't seen the movie, so I'm not suggesting you see it, but I heard he would like eat like a whole loaf of bread. Is this true? Maybe nobody, I don't know if it's true, but he'd hollow out like a loaf of bread and like eat like a whole jar, or like put a whole jar of peanut butter and jelly in the middle and like put a bunch of bacon in there and eat it. I don't know if that's fact or fiction. Maybe that's like a tall tale, but I would choose Elvis because I'm just curious. Like I want to see somebody eat that, and I want to try it too. But maybe you choose like a politician or, a musician who inspired you. So this is more on the anecdotal side, but they did this like, I don't know, the UK, they have like this charming way of making like videos and things on YouTube. So they set up this like interview style video where they pretty much got these adults, these couples together, and they're like, all right, living or dead, who would you like to share a meal with? And of course they're like, Nelson Mandela, or, different artists, celebrities. Somebody jokingly said Kim Kardashian. I don't know if I'd want to do that. Maybe. Well, you know what? If she's up for it, yes, I'll have dinner with you, Kim. If you're available, I'll take you up on that. But, so people mention different people that they would like to have meals with, famous artists, people who've like now passed away too. And, of course, you probably know where this is going. They brought the adults out and brought their kids in. And as you know, kids, everyone said, my mom and dad, my grandparents, my family, my brother and sister. You know what I mean? Just like very, very wholesome. And then, of course, the parents are, why did we say Kim Kardashian? We should have said our kids. So it's just like this like touching, video. I love, the UK. They know how to make those types of videos. So it's just very wholesome and beautiful. But your children need you. Your children need you. Your kids need you. The people around you, they need you. And like I said, if you don't have children right now, I didn't have children, my whole time in youth ministry. So you can still make a difference if you don't have children, or even if you, like I said, have relational strain with your family, relational strain with your children. It's okay. You don't have to force yourself on them. You can give them the space that they might need. If they're adult children, and you can just keep your heart open, be available, show them love, in the best way you can, and trust that the Lord can make a difference in their lives. And in that season, what you can do is you can pour into the other people around you who are open, the other children, the other community members around who maybe need your love in that season. And something else that we can do when we're in those seasons where we don't have anybody around us. Maybe you're like, Lauren, you don't know my situation. I can't pour into anybody right now. I don't have anybody around me. I don't have any people near me. What we can do is we're gonna read Titus, and what we can do is we can just set ourselves up to be those role models. We can work on our self-conduct the best that we can, and try to point ourselves in the right direction, because we can hope and pray that will pour onto the people around us. If we're working, and trying to align ourselves with the Word, we can pray and hope that as we conduct ourselves, it'll minister to those around us. So we're going to read Titus chapter 2, verse 2. We see here Paul is writing to Titus, and he's traveled with Titus, and he's pretty much trying to instruct him on these house churches, because Titus is in Crete. You guys know like the word Cretan, like what you call somebody who's just like, oh, they're such a Cretan, or I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but that's kind of where this word originates. And he's pretty much trying to show him like the outline of a Cretan household. Like, hey, if we're gonna create influence, if we're gonna make things better, we need to have some structure. We need to kind of bring positive influence into our families. So we see here in verse 2, but as for you, teach what accords with sound doctrine. Older men are to be sober-minded, dignified, self-controlled, sound in faith, in love, and in steadfastness. Older women likewise are to be reverent in behavior, not slanderers or slaves to much wine. Wine moms? Do you guys have any wine moms in here? Just kidding. Sorry, that's like a cultural trend. I'm sorry. Forgive me. That's just what I thought of. I'm still a youth pastor. They're to teach what is good, and so train the young women to love their husbands and children, to be self-controlled, pure, working at home, kind, and submissive to their own husbands. And the word of God may not be reviled. Likewise, urge the younger men to be self-controlled. Show yourself in all respects to be a model of good works, and in your teaching show integrity and dignity and sound speech that cannot be condemned, so that an opponent may be put to shame, having nothing evil to say about us. Bondservants are to be submissive to their own masters in everything. They are to be well-pleasing, not argumentative, not proliferating, but showing all good faith, so that in everything they may adorn the doctrine of our God, our Savior. To carry this out, obviously, we need the grace of God. I look at these things and I'm like, whoa, that's a lot. I don't think we'll ever be there, where I could look at this list and be like, yes, that is me to a T. It's tough, but that's kind of how we align our compass. You know what I mean? Like, we have when you go to like Google Maps to put in your location or Apple Maps, whatever you use, you don't do like, okay, I need to go to Walmart, so I'm going to route myself to the park nearby so that I know where to go. You route yourself directly to the place that you want to be. And, as you take a wrong turn or, just get distracted and miss your exit or whatever, you readjust. You remember what your compass is saying, where you're trying to go, what your GPS is telling you, and you try to keep aligning towards that. And once again, we can't do that without God's grace, without his salvation, without us constantly being forgiven. And it's like, okay, Lord, show us the way. All right, Lord, I wasn't dignified. That was not dignified, what I did back there. Show me the way. You know what I mean? So it's just that constant readjusting. And the reason Paul emphasizes like the need for good values is because it trickles down into families. It trickles down into the people around you. So like if we're doing like the opposite of all these things listed, that could do a lot of damage. Like if you go back and look at all the things listed, if we were doing all the opposite of that can cause a lot of harm to your family, the next generation. And obviously, we've all been there where we've been in situations where maybe we've been with people or we've been people who've acted this way. And, you can just see that ripple effect of hurt or damage and lack of trust. But as Christians, as believers, we're supposed to keep trying to aim for that higher, for that place. And once again, it's not easy. I know it's not easy. Even just now, like, I don't know if it's like lack of sleep, but it's like so much easier for me to just get like frustrated. And something about like when you're upset or frustrated, when you bring your voice like a little bit louder, depending on who your spouse is, they either match the loudness or they completely shut down. And sometimes, it's easy, like depending on who you're with, if they completely shut down, it's like, oh, that worked. You know what I mean? Where you can kind of like be the opposite of what this is supposed to be. We're supposed to like allow the word to change us so that we can be an influence for our families. So like I said, this isn't necessarily easy, but it shows in this word. I know that was a big chunk to read, but if you go back and read it, it talks about teaching the younger. If we're going to try to be this influence, like it's for the young men, young women. Let's read the rest of it. For the grace of God has appeared, bringing salvation for all people, training us to renounce ungodliness and worldly passions and to live self-controlled, upright, and godly lives in the present age, waiting for our blessed hope, the appearing of the glory of our great God and Savior, Jesus Christ, who gave himself for us to redeem us from all lawlessness and to purify for himself a people for his own possession who are zealous for good works. This next part is, Paul speaking to Titus, declare these things, exhort, rebuke with all authority, let no one disregard you. And you probably saw that last part where it's talking about being zealous for good works. I know that can make people squeamish because I've already read 2 verses about good works, so I know maybe that makes some people uncomfortable where it's like, what's my angle here? Obviously, good works aren't done so that we can receive more love from God, but they're supposed to be that light. The good works are that light that shines out of us as believers, as Christians, and that's how we can show God's love to others by, having that faith radiate out of us through our actions. And like I said, I know I already, mentioned this point before, but you can influence wherever you're at. You don't have to have a special job to minister, a special title. You don't even have to have a high school degree. Obviously, I recommend graduating high school if you're at that age, but I knew somebody in my life, I'm pretty sure they did not have a high school degree. My manager at Freddy's, he was an awesome guy from the South. He was just drippy sweet. And sure, he was just like a drippy sweet Southern guy, approachable. And sometimes you think you have to have like this sort of appearance or something to influence or mentor. Nope, you just got to be patient, kind, helpful, just willing. And every single teen working at Freddy's just loved this man. We all loved this man. We all surrounded him because he was the best. We would just be like 14-year-olds trying to work a cash register. And he would be so calm, while all the Maple Grovians were yelling at us because they didn't have their fries or something. Our boss, our manager is like, "That's fine, honey. Just keep punching in the numbers." Like, he's just a Southern guy who's just the sweetest, just trying to help us learn our first job. And, we also had another manager. He was really cool, had the coolest car, whatever. But obviously, sometimes people are attracted to like the outward things, like appearances or wealth, or, obviously that attracts people. But at the end of the day, whenever we were in trouble, we needed help, we'd go to that manager, the sweet one, the one that we knew he cared about us. And that's really where it starts. You just have to show that you care about someone. It starts at the heart. It starts with that trust. I don't know where he is, but I heard before he left, he was finishing school. So I'm not like giving a cop out to not finish school. He went back, and I think he did it through a college. But despite maybe him like not having that appearance of a mentor, he was my mentor, and he helped me just feel beyond comfortable at a job where I felt stressed, out of my mind. The youth know all about that. They know all about my time at Freddy's, so I won't take more time. No, I won't share. The worst part was, if you know the Freddy's in Maple Grove, the Costco, it's like, since it's like so open, it would create these like giant, amazing like gusts of wind. So you'd come out with your like giant pile of cardboard, and the wind would just come off the parking lot and like blow it all away throughout all of Maple Grove. So then you'd just be like running around in your uniform, like trying to collect trash. And then the bag would break. When you throw the trash away, they just use, I don't know. I won't get into it. So let the Holy Spirit guide you. Let him show you who that person is. And you can minister, you can show love, you can show kindness in whatever position you're in. It doesn't have to be, he wasn't a youth mentor or anything special. He's just our manager at Freddy's, and I remember him forever. Once you start this journey of trying to reach out to youth, teens, young people, they might seem like they hate you. I just want to give you a warning. They might seem like they hate you. They might seem like, they don't care about you. And I'm pretty sure like the whole first year of youth ministry, I'm like, everybody hates me. I don't think there's a single teen that actually likes me. In all honesty, it's just kind of like awkwardness. You know what I mean? Like, we're kind of used to having like adult conversations where it's like, "Hey, how's it going?" And they respond like, "Good, how are you?" Like, they have like the niceties, courtesies type things. The youth don't. If they don't want to talk to you, it's like they don't repeat the question back like, "Good, how are you?" Fine. Good. Bad. It's just like these single answers. So I'd like to say that like the moments where I felt like led to talk to a specific youth, I've had so many moments like this over the span of 5 years where I would see a teen or a family come in. I'm like, oh, I feel like I'm supposed to go talk to them. I feel like I'm supposed to go meet them and introduce myself. And I'd like to hope that like I walked up to them like, "Hi, I'm Lauren," and they're like, "Lauren? God told me that Lauren would come and talk to me today. And then it would just be like a crying fest, and we'd walk out like hand in hand, and just like a Hallmark movie type situation. But as we all know, life is not like a Hallmark movie. So it was just definitely more awkward, more uncomfortable than it was easy sometimes. Like it wasn't like that. Some of my first times meeting, the youth of our youth ministry, we were back at the movie theater. And I really remember vividly meeting these two brothers and their mom. And I remember during the conversation, like, sometimes when you're meeting people or talking, you're supposed to be remembering their name. But in reality, you're thinking your own thoughts, and then you forget their name while you're meeting somebody. So, I was meeting these, two youth with their parent. And while I'm meeting them, I'm like saying things, but in my brain, I'm thinking something else. I'm like, I know I'm never going to see these two boys ever again. You know what I mean? It's just like we're just sharing niceties, but in my brain, I'm like, I can tell by their face. I can tell by the feel, like they hate me. And I don't think they ever want to be here again. Flash forward 5 years, know them so well, been over their home multiple times, been connected with them. And now the church has helped them through so many situations, and we've had a close pulse on them for 5 whole years. So you just never know. You don't want to discredit things. Another time I met a family where they had 3 siblings, and it was it was just awkward. It was just so awkward, and I just knew that they're never coming back. I met them at the theater too, where I'm just I'm meeting them, and I can just tell it was just talking to a brick wall. It was just nothing was happening. It was I was just completely alone in that moment. And later I talked to the mom, and I'm like, I'm so sorry. Maybe I said something offensive, or maybe I just made them uncomfortable. I didn't mean to come on too strong. And they're like, and the mom was like, no, they just thought you were a youth. So they're just kind of confused that you were, organizing the youth ministry, because you were in a Pokemon shirt and you just look like a kid. So they didn't know any better. They just thought you were a kid trying to invite them over to your home. So, and then now, it's all completely, I just forgot about it all, and it's not awkward anymore. But there's so many times where, I remember leaving church and just being like, gosh, that was horrible. The youth don't care. They don't like me. But, we have to just really try to persevere despite those tough times. And I know a lot of people came back from camp, youth camp recently. So I know that you guys probably had those experiences too, where, maybe all the kids are driving and there's one who just does not care or something like that, just persevere, be patient, keep with it. God can use that. Relationships take time, and that trust needs to be earned. So, it's not this isn't a sermon where it's all right, now go lecture your kids and make them, feel really bad. Trust needs to be earned. Relationships need to be built. We've all had those people who just show up on the scene and tell us what to do, and it's all the walls come up instantly. I don't know if you've had that where somebody just shows up and tells you, do this, that, the other, and you're like, who are you to tell me this? But when you have somebody you trust and you can tell they love you, you're ready. You can be ready to receive from them. It's a lot easier. All right, so I know I was talking a lot about, ministering to the younger generation, but I'm going to flip it up a little bit. If you're alive and in this room, I'm almost positive that there is somebody older than you who exists. If you're 103, 104, maybe not. I don't know who the oldest, people are right now, but there is somebody older than you. And this is a great opportunity to open your heart to maybe receive from those who are older than you. We all need guidance in every single stage of our lives. I don't know where I would be if, right when I became a mom, if the other moms didn't come and surround me and help me, I wouldn't even know, because I remember all the struggles I was dealing with as a mom, and I'm like, well, it was my child, Ruth, was 3 weeks old, and I'm like, well, she's already messed up. I already messed it up. She's already, because it was crazy. We got the, measurements for, milk wrong, so, we were not feeding her enough, and I'm like, well, she's done, it's ruined. And then, then we'd have parents be like, no, I didn't feed my baby for a whole week. She's fine. And I'm like, oh, okay, good. Okay, I'm glad that she's going to be all right. We had these people who came and surrounded us, and gave us the wisdom that we needed. So despite, what season or stage of life you're in, we can always receive and open up our hearts to other people. And my lovely mom is is Filipino, and I'm half Filipino. And they just have the biblical truth of respecting your elders, like down to a T. I know we've kind of like lost that here sometimes. Like we think of like our folks as like Seinfeld characters, or it's just like, oh, Uncle Leo or Estelle. I don't know if you guys watch Seinfeld, but it's just like, oh, like they're kind of like a nagging presence in your life that you don't really, want to be around. But it's different. Like culturally, it's different. They have such a huge respect. We all know my Nai, right? Do you want to stand up, Nai? Say hi. Yeah, there it is. Hi, Nai. She is the star of the show. She is the star of the show at any family get-together, anything. We all love Nai. Like, seriously, the utmost respect for her. Like, when Caleb and I were getting married, I'm like, Nai, you need to be the one to pray over our food. We need your prayer over this food because we want you to be up there. And, of course, she said no. But then I'm like, then we forced her, and, it all worked out. But, yeah, seriously, they know that there's wisdom there. There's something powerful about honoring our elders and seeking that wisdom from them. And something that's really cool about Filipino culture too is they also have, I'm sorry, Nai, I haven't done this in a long time because we used to only see each other like once a year, but once you start seeing each other weekly, you start to feel very common. It starts to feel very normal. But in Filipino culture, you actually take the elder's hand. It's usually like 2 generations or more older than you, and you place it on your head, kind of like when you watch an old-timey movie and they grab the hand and they kiss it, and it's like, my lady. It's like a nice gesture or something. They have that, but you bring it to your head, and it's just a way to greet them, to honor them, to show them like, can you bless me? I want your blessing. I want your wisdom. And, I need to teach Ruth to do that. I need to teach myself to do that. Because it's just a beautiful gesture that they do to show respect to the people who came before them, the people who paved the way. And, like I said, sometimes it's tough because we have parents in our lives maybe that you're like, whoa, Lauren, like you don't know my family. I cannot get wisdom from my parents. If I get wisdom from my parents, my life will be ruined. Or something like that. There's like a fine line where we can still like respect and honor and like not slander, even if they're not in a place where they're healthy and they can speak into our lives and help us. But I think respect and honor is still very important, whether or not we agree with them, whether or not we understand them. We can still be like respectable and honorable to, like I said, like the people who came before us, who paved the way, despite maybe like relationships being fractured. Like we don't have to, maybe they're not that mom or dad that you expected, but you don't have to go around bad-mouthing them. We can try to honor and respect, like as the word says. And I know that's tough. I know that's hard. But I truly, as I've read the word, I feel like we do have this responsibility to honor and respect them the best that we can. Additionally, I want to talk about raising up new leaders. Finding that person, who you can mentor. If you see somebody at your work, at your job, you probably have somebody who raised you up. When you guys all started at your jobs, I don't know where you guys worked, but when you were young, you probably had somebody who lifted you up, who saw potential in you, and maybe if it wasn't your parents, somebody else, like an uncle or an aunt or your grandparents who saw you and were like, I'm going to help you. We can be that to this generation in many ways, and it doesn't take much. It can just be how's your day going? How are you doing? I had so many people, and that's why I did want to honor Pastor Jim. I remember when I first started at Living Word, I had some days where I didn't know what I was doing. I'd just get lost or something in the building, and he always had my back, and I'm just so thankful for those people who just, they have their eye on you, and they encourage you in those right moments. We can be that for somebody else, but sometimes it just takes like sometimes we have that focused vision, like when we have our own problems, our own issues, but it just takes like, when you're like taking a photo, like you just kind of like have to, focus out, like blur out. There's what's the term for that, photographers? You know what I mean? Where bokeh effect, the bokeh effect, or whatever it is, like you just gotta whoop, Thank you for whoever said that. I have no idea what that means. I should have looked it up before I talked about it. But yeah, it's just where we kind of just take a moment, instead of being so like laser focused on ourselves and what I need, what I got to do today, we can just take a moment to just like, and then just look around a little bit, like, okay, who maybe needs, that encouragement, that extra touch? Who is God leading me to? And I can't take credit for that. You guys probably all grew up with Mr. Rogers. If you, were 60s through, early 2000s, I grew up with Mr. Rogers, and, he has this amazing quote about, like, who loved you into being? Can you think of those people who loved you into becoming who you are? We have those people, whether they're here still or not, or they might not be here anymore, but, they loved us. They loved us when it was tough. They loved us when we didn't deserve their love, you know what I mean? Or, we deserve something else, but they still chose to love us. And we can think of them and honor them and think like, okay, can I be that person for somebody else right now? Can I be that person who focuses like not on me, but on somebody else? Can I pour into them? Because isn't that what life is about? I shared this last time, but, every time I would get like really worked up about my job or youth ministry, and we'd have like something happen and the numbers would drop, and like sometimes when you look at things on paper, like you start to get like really overwhelmed, where it's like, well, if I'm not going this way, I'm going that way, you know what I mean? Like you start to get like very overwhelmed about the way things are looking, or the way that you look, or, oh, am I relatable, am I enough? And during that time, I just would sometimes get really low, but remembering that life isn't about us, like obviously we're an important part of it, but we're here to love God and we're here to love others. And when we, are just focused on ourselves, like, what do I need? What do I want? Even with us, like, me becoming stay at home, I'm like, what are other people going to think? You know what I mean? If we don't have the newest thing or the newest that, or, if I have like these old shoes, like, cause things change. Like when you go down to one income, I'm like, what are people going to think? And I was like kind of worked up about this for like 2-3 days. And I know that's really embarrassing to share, where it's like, oh, you care about stuff, but yeah, sometimes I care about stuff or appearances. And then the second I thought, like, okay, what's my purpose here? Okay, if it's to love God, love others, is there like a monetary amount on that? Nope. All right, well, I can do my duty. I can do it. And then almost instantly, like the stress was gone. You know what I mean? The stress of appearances or success, all of that, gone, because we all know that's temporary. The highs are temporary. So we just have to remember that loving God, loving others, that's what's permanent. That's what makes a difference. That's what makes a change. And I just want to encourage you that it's never too late to make a difference. If we read Titus and it made you feel really bad because you're like, well, I haven't been sober-minded in 50 years. You know what I mean? I didn't read that, to make everyone feel bad or feel low. But I just want to encourage you that it's not too late to make a difference. We can choose to make a change, like a drastic change now. Obviously, sometimes there's damage that we've done, but, we can try our best to realign ourselves. I grew up in the Wayzata area, and my parents would take me to the beach very often. And back then, Wayzata, now it's like so done up. It's really like a grand place to be. Before, there was no boardwalk, there was no splash pad, there's like a rickety like playground you get splinters on, and like this payphone that you'd like jump on and it would like move around, like just, it was kind of dilapidated in some parts. It was just falling apart a little bit. So I kind of grew up in that area. We'd go there often. And something that really stood out to me in my memories, I don't know if you guys have those like hazy kid memories, like those first memories that you have kind of from early age, was I remembered this old man who would be at the park, and he would just have toys and games, and he would just have hula hoops. And okay, when you think about it like monetarily, like hula hoops and like a balance beam, and he would have paper to draw like pictures for the kids, like, come on, like, it's not very expensive. But for us, when we saw him there, everyone is just drawn to this man who's bringing like these free activities, these things. Like I said, everything was free and just for all the kids. And it was like the most exciting thing. as a kid. It was like the coolest thing that somebody would take this time to do this. And of course, like I was a child, so it was just like this blurry memory, but I still think about it when I come there. And later I learned that his name was Lewis. A few days ago, I found his obituary online because I'm like, how old was he? And I found out that he passed away when I was about 5 years old. So I probably met him, sometime between the ages of 3 and 5. My memory is foggy. So like it could have been multiple summers that I saw him, or I don't know, Dad. Maybe it was like 2 consecutive times at the beach that I happened to catch him there. I don't know. I was a kid, but that stuck with me. It made a difference in my life. And he was 93 when he passed away. So when you think about it, what if he turned 90 and he's like, you know what? I'm done. I'm tired. I don't want to be an influence anymore. I don't see myself, doing anything. I would have never met him. Like I said, I was between ages 3 and 5 when I met him, in his past few years. So he was out on the beach 90 doing that, and he didn't have to, he wasn't running around doing backflips or anything, but he was just there. He was showing us he cared. He, would draw for us, and that really, really stood out to me. And I'll keep that forever, because it's it doesn't take much to make a difference. This 90-year-old man, if he decided, yeah, I'm done, I would have never met him. I would have never had that influence in my life. So I know that sometimes we're, thinking to ourselves, oh, we're too old, or it's too late, or he wasn't even part of my family. I don't even know him. So it's not too late to reach somebody out there. And, like I said, when we were reading Matthew, there's no age limits for being that light. It's not like, oh, when you turn 18, you can start being a light, and then it kind of your light starts to fizzle out when you turn 81. It's not like that. It's a constant thing that you have access to. You can always be the light. And sometimes, if you're in this room and you're being hard on yourself, it's like, oh, that can't be me, though. That's great, Lauren, but you don't know me. You don't know my life. We can humble ourselves and be like, you know what, God, you could use anything. You could use some dead roadkill on the side of the street. So you can use me, we got to humble ourselves and trust that an almighty God can use us, that he can show us, and that he can bring the right people into our lives for us to minister to. And I just want to close with prayer. Thank you guys so much for listening to all my stories and everything else. It's just been such a blessing to be here at this church and to meet your kids, spend time with them. I love your kids so much, and Caleb and I are just so blessed that we even had the opportunity to hang out with them weekly. They changed us, and I just pray today that as you maybe reflect, that you can think of somebody else in your life that you could receive from, and then somebody that you could pour into today. So, Lord, thank you so much for everybody here in this room. I just pray right now that your Holy Spirit can lead and guide us. Show us those people that we're meant to reach, us specifically. I know that you have specific people in mind. So, Lord, I just pray right now that you lead us, you guide us, and that you can illuminate those people for us. Father, if we feel like our light is just completely burned out, I pray that you restore our confidence and strength. I pray that we can just remember that we are your light. We have your presence, and that just changes everything. So right now, Lord, we just submit ourselves to you, and we just ask for your healing touch and presence in our lives. Just revive us, give us energy, strength, and confidence, and a trust in you. In Jesus' name, amen.